So in yesterday's class, basically we discussed Peterson's algorithm, and we saw that software-based methods are not easy to implement this kind of a mutual exclusion. Furthermore, for modern architectures with multiple cores and CPUs, where there are relaxed memory consistency and all that, local caches and all that, it may not even work correctly because of all optimizations and everything that they do. So whereas it's much more sensible to assume that there is a hardware support, take some minimal hardware support, and if that makes it easy to provide a solution, why not do that? So the third option that we started discussing was using some hardware support in the form of providing some more powerful atomic instructions. So one of the atomic instructions that we saw was an exchange operation, which basically tests and sets the value in an atomic way, means it does both the things indivisibly without any interruption. So it takes a pointer address or a pointer, basically returns the old value stored at that pointer and sets that location with a new value. So stores a new value at that locations and returns the older value. So using that atomic operations, we could now in the lock operation, we could now do both the test and set thing in the same single instruction using this exchange operation. So we use exchange operations to fetch the previous value of lock and at the same time set it to 1, because we are trying to acquire the lock. So we'll set it to 1 and return and get back the old value. And if that old value is already held, then it will keep on spinning. If it was not held, if it was 0, then it can continue to the critical section. So that was the idea basically, and unlock remained the same thing. So this was a simple spin atomic instruction that we discussed. So it guarantees mutual exclusion. It guarantees progress. There won't be a deadlock at one point of time. At any point of time, at least one process will be able to acquire the lock. So that is not a problem. But there are some other problems with this. One of the problems which I think yesterday Vanshika observed that it may not guarantee starvation. So that is the first problem. So let me just write it separately here. So problem simple. Spin lock. We call it spin lock because in the while loop, it basically a waiting thread keeps on spinning in the while loop. So what it basically does, it's quite kind of a dull, mindless thing. It knows that some other thread has already acquired the lock. So still it's on trying to keep on checking that value and setting it again back to 1. But until unless the other threads actually runs and releases the lock, it won't be able to, this condition is not going to change. So it has to keep on spinning mindlessly in that loop. So it is not an efficient way. We'll see how to improve it. But it is at least a very easy implementation, nothing fancy we are doing here. Just a simple while loop and checking a condition. So the first problem, two major problems. We've already talked a little bit, but today we'll try to discuss them in more detail and their solutions also. So the first problem, let us take the problem of starvation. Which is also related to fairness. That this simple spin lock does not guarantee that none of the thread will starve, or there will be a fair allocation of lock to contending threads. So once this one simpler scenario of two threads we showed in the last class, just before closing our last class. Let us say two threads are running in a round robin fashion, A, B, A, B, A, B, and both are contending for the same lock. So A was the first one, so it acquires the lock first, then completes its critical section, and then does an unlock. But let us say it is trying to go into that critical section in a loop. So after some time, it will again acquire a lock, and before the critical section completes, it basically there is an interruption here. The time quanta elapses and B starts running. B also tries to acquire a lock, but at this point of time, it has to just spin whenever, because A is holding the lock. And then again, critical section then happen, the context switch happens, A gets the chance, A completes its critical section, calls unlock, but then again it needs the log, it will again acquire the log. And it may happen that before the critical section completes, again there is a context switch. So B again spins for the entire time slice. Although it's very rare, but it may happen, and this probability will increase when there are many threads, when there are n threads which are contending and the time quanta is short and critical section is larger, the critical section code is large, then this probability is going to increase. So starvation is possible, and we need to definitely address this problem. Otherwise, it cannot be used. This law not be used in a generic code. So I hope everybody understood what is the problem. So let me write it down. So if multiple threads, let us say T1 to, there are n threads which are contending for the log. It is not guaranteed that a particular thread, let us say Tj, who is caught in spin, will ever get a chance to acquire the lock. So I hope people could appreciate this problem. So what is the solution for this? So earlier we saw in Peterson's algorithm, they used kind of a turn variable which helped the contending thread to each one take turn to execute a critical section. So something similar we'll have to do here also. We can use additional variable. We can use additional variable in the state of the log. Variables to basically manage the order of lock acquisition. So that is what we want to do. But before we can do that, we'll need one more powerful hardware instruction or primitive done atomically to implement that lock. So that hardware primitive is called RMG calls it fetch and add, or sometimes it is also atomic increment. So what this operation will do, again, let us try to represent the C style representation to understand what this operation is going to do. it is going to take a address, and yeah, it's just going to take an address because it only needs to do increment. So it will fetch the value, which the older value at that address. So int old is equal to star address, and then it will increment the value stored at that address by 1, the old value. But why it is more powerful? Because it will all be done in an atomic way as individual instruction. So both increment and fetching the value will be done atomically without any interruption. So that hardware guarantees, by providing this atomic increment operation, hardware guarantees that you can do this. So using this, we will using this using this operation instruction, we will try to implement something called ticket log. In Ramji's book, we call it ticket log. A ticket lock mechanism which will ensure that there is progress for all the threads. So how do we implement this ticket lock which will ensure that there is progress for all threads? So as the name suggests, ticket lock, the name suggests ticket, we are going to use some kind of a ticketing mechanism. Basic idea is that we'll try to reserve each thread's turn to use a lock. So we'll give a ticket to each thread, and that will be its turn to use the lock. Just like when we enter into a somewhere where there is a queue, or maybe a museum or a park, we get a ticket. So we can use that ticket basically to enter there. So whenever that turn comes, our ticket number comes, we can actually get a chance. So something as simple as that. So let me see, I can copy back the older code and just modify there. So what modification we can do here? Let us try to see. So we can add more variables. We can have a turn variable, which will basically decide whose thread's turn it is. And we can use, instead of a lock, let us give, the name is ticket log. So let us give the same name to this. We'll have a variable ticket, and a variable turn in our mutex. And basically for initialization, we just have to initialize both the ticket number as well as the turn to 0. Now in lock function, what we need to do? What can we do in the lock function? We need to use this ticket and turn variable, and we will use this atomic increment operation that we just discussed to implement our log function. The unlock function will remain. We will give the turn. We'll increase the turn by 1. So we are initializing but the turn and the ticket to 0, and we are going to, whenever we have to unlock, whenever a owner of the thread unlocks, it is going to increment the turn value. Maybe let me just write it down, and then I'll ask you whether you can understand this or not. So what it will try to do, it will try to get the current value of the ticket, and at the same time it will increment it to 1 for the next thread. So it will use this fetch and add or atomic increment, whatever operation you represent it, to basically get the current value of ticket and at the same time increment it by 1. And then it will basically check whether my turn is equal to, whether my turn is not equal to, if so it will wait till its own turn is not equal to the current value of the turn, the current value of the log's turn. So log has a turn, this turn. So it will basically check, as long as my turn is not equal to the current value of turn, it will keep on spinning. So this statement is basically what it is doing. It is giving a unique ticket to every thread. So it is happening in atomic way. So even if multiple threads tries to acquire the ticket at the same time, this atomic operation will guarantee that each thread is going to get a unique ticket only. They cannot get the same ticket or any other thing. They will get a unique ticket, and rest of the, I think, logic should be simple, should be understandable. I'll just give you 1 minute to look at this code and convince yourself whether not only this will solve the problem of mutual exclusion, but also it will guarantee that there is no starvation. Does it make sense to anybody? Can anybody try to explain what is how this is working? Broadly, what is the idea? In the using the code. Maybe I'll just explain through some simple an example instance. Let us say there are two threads, T1 and T2. Both basically try to acquire the lock simultaneously. They are both are contending for the lock. So T1 and T2 both try to acquire the lock. So let us say the T1 called the lock. This T1 executed this my turn is equal to this instruction first. So this is going to get my turn as 0. Initially the value of ticket is 0, and then T2 executed this instruction, and it would get the turn as 1 because the ticket value will have been incremented to 1 by T1. Current value of ticket will be now, initially ticket was 0. Maybe let me write it here. Initial ticket was 0. When T1 called it, it returned 0 to the T1 and incremented the ticket to 1. When T2 called it, it returned ticket 1 to the T2 and incremented the ticket value to. And the turn, what is the turn value? turn value remains 0 till this point of time. Now let us say any of the thread T1 and T2 tries to execute this condition, check condition, while condition. So let us say T1 tried first. So for T1, whether this condition is true or false, the current value of turn is 0 and his turn is also 0. So for T1 means this condition will be false. So it will know that it is my turn. And so it will acquire the lock. And even though T2 may also try to do the same thing, or T2 may try to do it before T1, this condition for T2, this condition will be false because T2's my turn is 1 and the current value of turn is 0. So this condition will be my turn is not equal to, yeah. So this condition will be true. It is not equal to the thing. So T2 while condition is true, so it is going to spin. So it will spin or it won't acquire the lot. So again, T1 and T1 will basically be allowed to execute the critical section. T1 will execute critical section and then call unlock. This unlock is basically going to increment the turn value to, this turn will become increment turn to 1, isn't it? So that will allow, that in turn will allow now thread T2 to get the lock, because now for T2 this condition will become false because now it will know that it is my turn. So even before, let us say T2 tries to so in this case, before T2 runs unlock, even if T1 had again tried to acquire the lock, but the turn that T1 will get will be 2. So T2 now, so it's not possible that T1 will again be given back the chance to acquire the lock until unless T2 runs, because T1 this condition will be false. So unless T2 runs and calls unlock, T1 has to now spin for sure. It's irrespective of in what way the scheduling happens. Before T2 runs, T1 will not get another chance to execute the critical section. So I hope you can understand now that by having this additional management using a turn variable, we are able to guarantee that these threads are going to take turn for acquiring the lock and able to execute critical section turn by turn. Has anybody any doubt, any question, please ask here. Has everybody understood this? I have 2 questions here to you. One question is, do we need to do this atomically? Here also we are trying, this turn is a shared variable among both the threads, T1 and whatever containing threads. But here we are trying to increment this turn to 1. So, and for this we are not using an atomic increment operation. So there is a there is a possibility of context switch. So do we need to use this atomic increment? Do we need to do it atomically? Using again this fetch and add instruction, or not necessarily? I hope you got the question. Here in unlock, we are just simply incrementing this turn by 1 without thinking that it is a critical section. So we are not using any special operation, atomic operation, to increment it. will that cause a problem? Is there a chance that that can cause some problem or no?
No, sir.
Okay, why?
Because if context switch happens in between as well, but the turn will not change, right? So if the turn will not change, then whatever the thread is, it will keep on spinning. So there will be a eventual context switch back to that thread, and it completes the unlock. And then and only then the turn will change.
Okay, and there are some other answers posted. It was not so clear. I'll just try to, but I think you are getting the point. Let me just see other answers. Hardik said need to do as increment plus return. If done different, then result would be wrong. Okay, so this is another opinion. No, since it won't be able to call at the same time. Yeah, I think Anushka is right. See, we are saying by this, first of all, log is ensuring that only one thread is able to enter the critical section. And before entering the critical section, unlock cannot be called. That responsibility we are leaving to the programmer, because threads are cooperative. The trust model in threads are being, if a same person is writing a multi-threaded program, so same developer is not going to use this lock and unlock function maliciously. So he will not going to call unlock before calling a lock function. So if unlock is not being called before lock, and if other threads are already stuck at this point, they cannot call unlock simultaneously. Not more than one thread can call unlock simultaneously. So if they are not calling this simultaneously, then there is no possibility that this instruction is being executed by more than one thread at a time. So that means we don't have to worry about critical section here, because semantics ensures that this instruction is going to be operated by only one thread, because the owner of the lock is only one, and this unlock is going to be called by only the owner of the lock at a time, at any instant of time. So we don't need to do it atomically. So we don't need to use any powerful instruction for this purpose. Vanshika was also known as it won't allow another thread to execute. Yeah, something similar. So question number 2, a simple question. We are not resetting. We are always going to increment ticket and turn. Ticket and turn are already, we are only using an atomic increment operation. We are never resetting it. At any point of time, we are never resetting it to the initial value 0 and all that. So there is a distant possibility, if we are using, let us say, int, or maybe a better, you can use an unsigned int. So we can have more variables, more space there. So there is a possibility that, if assuming 4 bytes are being used, that there is at some point of time overflow may occur. So what happens if it overflows? Do we need to worry about that case? I hope you are getting the question. My question is simple. We are just, every time we are just incrementing ticket and turn, and let us say we are running a loop thousands or millions of times, and we are again entering into critical section, and there are n number of threads which are trying. There is a distant possibility that the value of this ticket and turn can increase to a point that there is an overflow, depending on if you are using only 4 bytes or whatever. There is a distant possibility that there is an overflow that may occur, and we are never resetting it back to 0 or something. So will that cause a problem, or will the algorithm still, will the function still work, will do the job?
In case of an unsigned int, when it overflows, it will again go back, right? So
Yes.
we don't have to explicitly do that. So it will be the same case as resetting it to 0.
Yeah, so it will depend on how overflow is implemented. So if one, maybe it may just that's why if you use an unsigned int, probably it won't go negative, it will be 0. Or in whatever way, even if you don't assume that it comes back to 0, it may take any arbitrary random value. But still, the same behavior will happen for ton also. Same behavior will happen for ticket also. So in that way, both are going to get a unique value, irrespective of how overflow is implemented. They are going to get a unique value, and the ton is going to match that value. So there is it won't cause problem, but there is a scenario, a distant scenario, where it may cause a problem, where you may spawn billions of thread at the same time, at same point of time, and all of them are contending. So current hardware probably may not support that, but who knows, future hardwares may become so powerful that you can actually spawn billions of threads at the same point of time. And if all of the threads basically call this log function, and all of them increment it simultaneously, then probably this uniqueness condition may get violated. If there is an overflow, the first thread also gets 0, and maybe a billionth thread, which basically called it overflow, that may also get a 0 value. And that may violate this uniqueness condition, and that may cause a problem. But in the current hardware, we don't have to worry about that problem. And at least none of the applications will need that many threads to be run. So for now, we don't have to worry. This implementation is sufficient for us to work. I hope you understood what I meant to say. So practically no problem for us. Unless we are able to there are not billions of threads contending for the ticket. So anyhow, that was just a side point. That doubt does come in the mind. So another third question is the critical. Yeah, there will be a scenario where ordering of thread will matter, and we will see methods to do that also. So as we said, for synchronization, there are two scenarios that we need to worry about. One is an ordering scenario, and another is just a updation of a shared data. So ordering scenario is also important, and we'll have a method to handle that also. So one way is we can lock more complicated, where we can ensure an ordering also. So right now, this turn is doing some kind of an ordering, but again, it's not a full. It depends on which one executes this lock first, and that way they will get the ticket. So there is not a complete control over it. So we may have to go for a more sophisticated implementation to do that, but we'll see that later on. We have some simpler methods also to do that. One thing just I wanted to mention here also, if we were using for this lock for our simple purpose of the code that we show, where we are basically doing counter plus plus, our shared data structure was just a global counter which we were trying to increment. So the contending thread all the threads were contending just for a simple counter variable, and they were trying to increment. So if we have to do that, instead of using a log, we can just use this atomic increment operation itself, this fetch and add or whatever the hardware provides. We don't need to use log. Whenever each thread can just use this operation to increment the shared variable and update it. So that can solve the whole problem. We don't need a log in the first place, isn't it? So just like there's an atomic increment, probably there may be an atomic decrement operation also. And but there are two things here. First of all, how many operations hardware will try to provide an atomic instruction? Increment, subtraction, multiplication, those are simple arithmetic operations. Then there may be logical operation and whatever. That is one thing. Second thing is also most of the programming language do not provide direct access to these these advanced or more sophisticated hardware instructions. C language gives the option by directly invoking an assembly level instruction inside the code, but many of the language may not provide that facility to be able to use directly in the code an atomic instruction. The third thing is that I would like you to appreciate is our shared data may not be just a simple global counter. It can be a linked list, it can be a binary tree, it can be a B tree, and there may be so many operations going on that data structure. And if we have to ensure that all those updations happen in an atomic way, we need this lock mechanism. We cannot just do with. Is my console visible, or I have just only shared the one node? So just a simple data structure like a linked list. I hope the code is visible to everyone. So we are all familiar with a linked list code. We have a node struct for a node, and we have a head node for that, and we initialize by null, and then there are insert, delete, and lookup operations like this. I hope everyone would be familiar with this. And let us say there are multiple threads which are using this linked list and doing manipulating this linked list, doing insertion operation in a concurrent execution. So again, there is a scenario where we'll have to use lock. It's not a simple atomic operation. It's not simple, no more than a simple arithmetic operation or something like this. We are changing pointers and all that. So can you tell me which portion of the code is a critical section here? So let us just look at the insert operation right now. Let us say, while you're trying to insert a node here, if let us say there are two threads trying to insert a node simultaneously in the linked list. So here we are trying to insert at the head of the node in the beginning of the linked list. So will it cause a problem if two threads are trying to do it simultaneously, concurrently? Will it lead to a problematic situation if there is a context switch at a arbitrary point?
Yes, sir.
How?
Sir, if suppose there are two programs that are doing the same thing, then there are suppose the new key is equal to key. This instruction gets executed twice, basically by two instructions. Then the one which overrides the key, that instruction, that key will get stored in the head of the basically in the linked list. That key only will be stored and not the other one.
So so you are, according to this portion of the code is a critical section?
This also, and as well, all the three lines should be the
all the
critical
three
section.
lines. Okay. So all the three lines will be a critical section. Okay. So does everybody agree with this? Anybody has any other opinion, any other answer? Ujjwal, you also have the same answer? Insert after same node by different thread and lead to memory wastage. Insert after same node by different thread and lead to memory wastage. Okay, yeah. I think I understood what you're trying to say. Let me try to explain it, I think, for everybody. So let us say there is a simple linked list. Let us say there are 2-3 nodes already there. There is a head node, and maybe let us say call node N1, node N2, and null. And let us say two threads T1 and T2 are trying to insert in this linked list simultaneously. So T1 will allocate a new node, T2 will allocate a new node, this may insert a key, let us say K1, and this may insert a key, let us say K2 in that node. And now there were, as if you see the code, there are three things happening. Let me see if I can copy it from here. So new key is equal to key, and new ka next is equal to head, I think, or list ka head, and list ka head becomes new. So now each thread T1 and T2 can execute this independently. There is no problem. Each may execute. Each will get a separate new node, because each will get a separate allocation and may store their own key, whatever key they're trying to insert. But now when they're trying to modify the pointers, the next pointer and the head pointer, there is definitely a contention involved here. For example, here, let T1 thread try to basically change. So this pointer, it tried to, by this instruction, what it is trying to do, new next will become the old head node. So this will actually, this pointer is going to point to this, and L head is basically becoming a new node, and this one is going to go down. So by if only one of the thread is executing, it will insert successfully and there won't be a problem. But if this thread also simultaneously tries to do that, so depending on in which order it happens, if this happened after this, both of them will point to the same node, and this one, that depends on this one, which of them actually happened, whether this pointed to this one or this pointed to this one. So depending on in which order it happened, if this happened after this, then basically this node will become this will be overwritten. This will be overwritten by this thing. So the actual list will become this, and there is a memory wastage. This new node, as usual, identified there is a memory wastage. There is a leak of memory here. This becomes redundant, and there is a loss of this node. That is loss of this key. This key, which was supposed to be inserted into this thread, this linked list would be lost. So definitely there are problems that will happen if multiple threads are allowed to simultaneously manipulate a simple linked list structure like this. And more problems we can see if there are other advanced data structures like B trees and all that, and we cannot have a atomic operation for all of those things. So definitely we will need locks as a general mechanisms to make all these data structures safe for multiple thread execution. I hope the point is clear to everybody, how this multiple threads trying to insert at the same time in a linked list can cause a problem. One of the node will become a dangling node, basically, and only one of them can get inserted, and another one will basically, although it will have a link address, it will have a pointer to one of the nodes here, but this will be lost basically, or there will be a leaking of memory here. So coming back to our in this code, so where do you think we should put the critical section? Where do you think we should put the lock? Should we put the lock before this and for the entire function, in the beginning of this or at the end of this function, lock and unlock, or should we narrow it down? We put a lock in a too broad a critical section, the contention is going to increase. if our critical section is large, the possibility of contention is going to increase among multiple threads. So we should try to make our critical section as short as possible so that the amount of contention is reduced among threads. So for example, this allocation of node is definitely not a critical part. These two things definitely are not a critical part. Even I think this assignment of this this key value to this is not a critical part, because each has its own new node. So this is not a critical part. These two things are these two operations can lead to a problem. So these two are the main critical section part of the code which can cause a data race condition. So we should put a log before this and after this. Analogously, delete operation will also have something similar. And lookup also, I think it's just traversing the list and finding a node. So I don't know, if there is no, so where is the critical section in this lookup? Is there a critical section in this list lookup portion of the code? I think we have less time. I will leave it an exercise to you. Think over this, whether this insert searching in a linked list, whether there is a critical section there or not, whether there is a data race there or not. And we'll discuss that later on. Let me just try to cover something more. We have not discussed the second problem. The second problem is a performance problem. There is too much CPU wastage due to spinning. So that is a performance issue. Basically, if the simple log is good as long as there are less number of threads and the critical section is small. So if there are, let us say, only two threads, T1 and T2, and one of them basically cause lock and immediately just one or two instructions of the critical section and cause unlock, and then goes and continues the other part of the code. It's not going to repeatedly get into a critical section. Then this kind of a log is very good. It is simple to implement, does not has much overhead, and the other threads will also get the chance to acquire the log very easily. But the problem happens when either the critical section is too large, or there are large number of threads contending for it, or they are repeatedly entering into critical section in a loop, and so on. So in that case, what happens is the bad case is when as contention increases, contention may increase due to many things. So I told there may be many threads, or the critical section may be large, or they may be repeatedly trying to acquire lock. Then anytime a thread gets caught into spinning, it wastes an entire time slice. So if it is a round robin algorithm, the entire time slice that we have seen is getting wasted. This entire time slice is getting wasted doing useless work of just checking the condition, which is not going to change anyhow, because the other thread, until that gets chance to execute, that condition will not change, especially on a single CPU. If there are multiple CPUs, spin lock tends to work well, because the owner of thread will very soon release the lock. So that is not a problem. But this kind of problem may happen only when there is a single CPU. So in that case, the entire time slice will get wasted. And this situation will get exaggerated when there are n number of threads, all of them contending for the same lock. So if T1 acquired the lock and before it called unlock there was a interrupt in between, then all T2 to T3, and if it is a round robin fashion, all of them, let us say there are 100 threads, let us say 100 threads, all of them will execute one by one, get the CPU time slice of a CPU time quanta, and each one will keep on spinning, and before it release, the time slice is wasted. So entire n-1 times the time quanta, time will get wasted till T1 again gets a chance to run, and then it calls unlock. So that is a very worst scenario. Basically, you are wasting a huge amount of CPU cycle in basically spinning around the lock. So in the next class we'll see the solution for this. We'll see that we'll have to take OS support as well for this. We cannot just rely on hardware to do that. We'll have to have some role of the OS also in order to improve this performance issue. So that will be our next class. So any short question? I'm taking